Well, hello everyone. It's been a little while since I've done a podcast here on Scenes from the Corner, but today's the day, and I was kind of inspired by multiple things. Primarily, I was inspired by the fact that we have seedlings that we've just moved out of the house. They've been growing for a while, and we've moved them out of the house into the greenhouse. Now, most people start their seedlings in their greenhouse. Well, I've kind of concluding an experiment with doing microgreens. We also had herbs in there, which we've now moved out into the garden in pots. We also planted some herb seeds directly, and it looks like yesterday we had some basil that was coming up in our direct sow. That's so exciting. So I wanted to share with you guys a little bit and this inspiration from the greenhouse about kind of food and eating the food. And what I mean by that is I have just begun over the past few days cutting out sugar from my diet. It's a little thing that I call the crackdown. Now, it's not, for me, not just about food. It's about spiritual disciplines. It's about emotional health. It's about mental health. It's about a number of things. But I'm just starting off with what I think is some low-hanging fruit by dealing with diet, dealing with a food plan. So here's basically what I'm doing. I'm starting by cutting out sugar. Now, basically, sugar is in everything that we eat, seemingly. And when I say sugar, I mean primarily refined sugar, white refined sugar. I also mean anything that turns to sugar in your system, unless it's some kind of healthy sugar. Still doing honey. Still doing a tad bit of brown sugar, but that's slowly getting rooted out. But I'm on about day 3, and I'm already feeling a little bit better. And I feel like there's some leveling out happen, and the cravings are starting to decrease. I'm starting with cutting out sugar. But looking at all the seedlings here in the greenhouse is inspiring because springtime as a homesteader, as a gardener, and chicken keeper makes me think about being outdoors, cultivating these vegetables that are organic, no chemicals. I know what's in the dirt. I have this sense that I'm taking control of my food in the garden, which is ultimately going to help me begin to control my food that comes into the kitchen, into our skillet, into our refrigerator, and ultimately into our bodies. And that's an exciting prospect for me. So here's kind of a consideration that I wanted to give to us today to think about. If you're into homesteading, one of the things that you sort of naturally come into is wanting to understand food, the health factors related to food. Where is your food coming from and who is sourcing it? What are they adding to it? And the deeper you get into the homesteading mindset and lifestyle, the less likely you are to trust where your food is coming from, except from somebody maybe that's growing it. See, it used to be that you would just go to the grocery store and just go, I'll get these tomatoes. I'm sure they're fine. But then maybe you found out that they are doing things to those tomatoes that you did not ever perceive, like they've genetically modified the DNA to make it produce more. Well, isn't that weird? Or you went in to the produce section and you saw these apples and they were red and they looked so juicy and shiny and beautiful. But then you found out that they put wax on the apples to cause them to last longer so they would not get ripe as quickly, and it makes them look better sitting on the shelf. So you look at them and go, oh, those apples look wonderful. When in reality, they've got this coating on them that was never intended to be there. See, they need to make the product last longer so they can sell more of it. And I remember an experience that I had years ago. I was up in Washington State where they grow a lot of apples. I was on the east side of the state, and I decided, hey, it'll be neat if I can go to a roadside stand while I'm in the eastern side of the state of Washington and get some fresh apples, and I also got some raspberries from this stand. Well, when I began to reach down and grab an apple to look at it, it's like it was stuck to my hand. I couldn't get it to let go. It was sticky. Well, I was repelled by that because, I'm used to my apples not being sticky and having a shiny coating on them so I can easily let go of them. But it was like it was stuck to my hand. And I was like, what is the matter with these apples? They're sticky. And the guy looked at me, the farmer, and he goes, son, that's the way they are. What? So that was a wake-up call for me. That was years ago. That was back in the 90s. That may have been a beginning point for an awakening of looking at where your food comes from and what's really going on with it. So as a homesteader, as a gardener, as Sarah and I are putting in our food, we've got some stuff in the ground. We've got okra coming up. We've got lots of cucumbers coming up. We've got dragon tongue beans coming up. We've got Chinese long beans coming up. These are the things that we've direct sown. We've got potatoes that are coming up. We've got, what do we have? We've got spinach and lettuce and carrots all growing right now. 3 different types of beets are growing. Got a lot of things going on, and it's exciting. And it's making me again focus on food and eating well. So it's springtime. Are you planting anything? One of the things you hear from me repeatedly on this podcast is you need to get your hands in some dirt, plant you some seeds, and grow you some kind of food. Well, what a great time to focus on what you're eating when you're actually planting something that come summertime will be stuff that you get to eat. It's a great time to focus on your food. Well, food, because it's the engine through which our bodies make energy and get healthy and give us strength, we need to eat food that's dense with nutrients, that's not coming from depleted soil, that's not been genetically modified and treated with herbicides and pesticides. So I don't know a real way to do that except to buy local, get to know your local farmer and what are their practices. Go and see their place. Also, in your own garden, you can choose not to use chemicals. You can use manures and things to amend the soil. And you can do everything naturally and what is actually supposed to be normally, instead of adding all these additives that are chemical in nature. So, thinking about that, whatever you put into your food goes into your body. Think about that. Whatever is put into your food goes into your body. So the purest food you can eat is wise. Now, here's a thought. Eating natural foods. See, what happens is we often eat what I would call unnatural foods. Processed foods, food that is typically found in a bag or a box at the grocery store that's been processed. Think about the cereals that we eat. There are very few natural cereals. They're mostly constituted, reconstituted. They take out the nutrients and they add vitamins and nutrients back into it. Got lots of enriched flour, crazy amounts of sugar. That's, well, called cereal. When really, if you just got oats and made oatmeal, it doesn't taste as great as those cereals that have been processed and reprocessed and sugar added and all that kind of stuff, corn syrup and all of that kind of stuff. It just tastes like, well, oats. But it's natural and it's actually good for you, right? So these processed foods, if we started, which will probably be my second step, I'm getting rid of the sugars first, the refined sugars, the corn syrups, the white sugars and things like that in my diet. My second step will probably be to squeeze out more of the processed foods and move more towards the whole foods. So in general right now, my diet plan, my food plan includes meat, vegetables, and fruit. Now, fruit has some natural sugars in it, fructose and things like that. And so eating a banana or an apple can be part of helping get rid of that sugar craving. So that's one of the things that I'm doing, is incorporating fruit in. Yesterday, Sarah, when she made me eggs from our girls in the morning, she gave me an orange with the eggs. That orange had that sweet orange juice in it that was very nice for continuing to help me get over my desire to have refined sugars. So pressing out of your diet those processed foods and embracing more whole foods is definitely going to be my next step. And I'm already moving into that step even as I'm rooting sugar out of my diet. So I want to kind of give these thoughts because as homesteaders, as a gardener, this is the focus of the season, of the time of year for you on your food. So it only seems natural to me, and I believe could build some momentum and some inertia into your health regimen. If you're focusing on your food in your garden and you're focusing on food in your homestead, why not focus on the food right now that you have in your food plan? So I would say step number 1, begin to root out all refined sugars, especially white sugar and corn syrups. Still keep your natural honey. Maybe keep pure maple syrup. Again, that's more of a natural type sugar. And if you have to, do some brown sugars, especially if it's like the more raw style cane sugar or brown sugars, but maybe rooting those out as well. But again, if you need a little bit as you're transitioning, and do more fruit sugars. Now, don't load up on fruit. Just don't make that as a substitute for the sugars that you're cutting out. But add more fruit to your diet. So meats, vegetables, fruits, getting rid of the sugars, adding the meats, vegetables, and fruits, and pushing out refined foods, lab-made kind of foods, lab-created kind of foods, processed type foods. Pushing that stuff out. So here's a good tip for you. When you're shopping at the grocery store, obviously you want to be aware of what you're buying. And in general, if you shop around the outside aisle of the grocery store, you will find the foods, or be easier to find the foods that are better for you to eat. Typically on the outside aisles, you have dairy. Typically on the outside aisles, you have meats. And typically on the outside aisles, you have your fruits and vegetables, your produce. So produce, meat, and dairy. You often have as well, your breads will be on one of those. So, now within those 4 groups, your breads, your produce, your meat, and your dairy, there's good and bad. Be discerning. If you can, buy stuff that's organic. I know that's more expensive, but if you know it's more free of the stuff that's not healthy for you, that's good. So shopping the outside aisles in general, and then within those outside aisles, be very discerning of what you buy. Do the best you can to determine what is in the stuff, even on the outside aisles that you're eating. Like the example I gave of the waxy apple. Okay, so that's some thoughts on spring while you're gardening. As a homesteader, think about your food plan and what's going into your body. I really think that's going to help build some inertia and build some momentum into health goals that you may have. So those are some thoughts. Hope that's helpful. Sharing a little bit of the journey with me as well and where I am. And I know that focusing on our health is one of the number one gifts we've been given by God. And we want to do the best we can to maximize our health. And obviously, the fuel that we put in our bodies, the food, is a big part of that. So, want to remind you again, get your hands in some dirt, plant you some seed, and harvest some good, healthy, tasty food at your own place this spring. Now's the time. So it's time for you to get busy and get healthy. Be blessed.